Good evening, it's Valerie Ling here. I am a clinical psychologist. I am also currently on sabbatical and I am a student studying a Master's of Leadership, hoping to get that finished and be doing some new things next year. I would like to talk to you about assumptions and the edges of surviving. Very early on, as I was trying to consider what would be a fantastic sort of way to encapsulate the philosophy of mental health that I personally had, I started by saying that thriving is not just simply surviving, right? It's about flourishing. That concept still resonates very much today, and the observation is that more and more we seem to be accepting surviving as being the normative, and that let's just get to the point of surviving and then we should be all good. I don't know about you. When I think about surviving, I think about a really fine line between drowning and barely breathing. Do you watch Survivor? That's a show, a reality TV show. I don't even know if it's still on. But if you have a look and see what actually happens to these people, it's unsustainable, right? You can't live this way. By the end of the series, they're barely recognizable. Yeah, they may have got some kind of acclaim and no doubt some sort of prize. We'll forget them. And the picture that will maybe, if we will call to our mind of what they look like, are, sort of dirty faced, barely having any meat or muscle on them, really looking quite run down. And that to me is survival. It's that fine line of you drowning and barely breathing. I find that a very sad, sad reality to accept. And I don't mean sad in the context of in a loser sort of way, like, oh, why would you? That's so dumb. I actually really mean it from a very, very sad, sad perspective. Greetings, Julie. Julie, you are the shark catcher woman. You are a very strong woman. You do not just survive, you totally thrive. I don't know why we accept that. I've got some guesses. But I want to talk today about the assumptions that we therefore make about what is considered to be normal. So we hear so much about mental illness and we hear so much about depression and anxiety, and that can really cause us to forget that mental health as the big picture and wellness is normative, right? And I don't mean that anybody with a mental illness is not normal. That's not what I mean. In fact, you can have depression and anxiety and still lead a very full life. I'm talking about wellness from the point of view of regaining quality of life, regaining a quality mental health. So for example, someone like myself who struggles with asthma, and this year remember to actually get on the preventer, doesn't mean that I no longer have asthma. With medication, with proper preventative measures, with knowing that it's not a great idea to go for a walk when it's all smoky and hazy, with an awareness and management, I can actually have quality of life, as opposed to accepting that not having my medication, running myself to the ground, going for marathons in smoke and haze, and then barely being able to breathe, finishing, coming home and saying, oh, so good to have survived, right? There's a difference. The assumptions that we make really guide where we set the bar for ourselves in terms of what is possible. I'm very aware that there are a couple of edges that I have with regards to knowing when I'm moving to survival mode and at which point it's going to tip over to drowning. If I don't get quality sleep, if I ignore pain, if I'm actually having relationship conflicts, if I hold on to beliefs that make me feel like I'm failing. If I rehearse and rewind and replay my day, going through all the things that I believe I've done wrong, all the ways I've let people down, these are all things that will push me to that edge. And here's the thing, a lot of anxiety is based around uncertainty. This is kind of the time when, and I don't just mean from a pandemic point of view, I just mean in general, we pretty much live with increasing levels of uncertainty. When we try to get control by doing more, thinking more, worrying more, sleeping less, when we try to do that, when we try to exert that type of control over certainty, we just don't cope very well. And so we pedal and we tread on thin air, really. So what do those assumptions look like for you? Have you accepted that surviving is the normative? That as long as you reach that point where you're not quite drowning and you're struggling to breathe, that is okay? What's it like for you in terms of knowing where the edges are for yourself, where those points really that will push you into that space, that really narrow space? What are those resources that might be lacking in your world? What are the relationships that are really foundational and important for you? And what's really causing you to feel like you're not okay, that you're defective somehow, that you're not enough in your relationships and in what you do? It's important to be aware of those things and not surrender to it, not to surrender to those assumptions. I bid thee farewell this evening and hope that you will find your thrive and flourishing space. Good night.